Hi, I'm Paul Seal from CodeShare.co.uk. Welcome to the sixth episode in this series where I'll show you how to build a website with Umbraco 13. In this episode, we're going to be looking at creating block grid content. And so we'll be creating a standard header for our pages, the rich text editor, the configuration for the rich text. Now, we did cover that slightly in the last one, but I wanted to just go over that. I felt like we went over that a bit too quickly. The image links blocks, and then call to action one, the icon link, and the image with caption. So we've got a lot to cover. It may turn into a two-part episode, again, like the last one, but just bear with me. Let's see how we get on. It might go quick, it might go slow. So let's get on with this then. So the first thing we want to do then is just have a look at how we implement the header. So I've logged into the back office on our systems. We currently don't have a header, we don't have a main content. In the previous episodes, we've done the navigation and the footer. We can look at putting the block previews in on these later, but for now, we'll just leave them as they are. But in this episode, either part one or part two, we will actually put the previews in, and then we will apply the relevant previews for these as well. So what we need to do is have a look at see what it is that we want to put in for the standard header. So what is the standard header for a start? So let's just go to the page. The standard header is this header here. So currently that header is comprised of an image, a title, and a subtitle. So this is a rather simple component. So what we can do is we can go into settings, document types, components, block grid, content models, and then we can just create ourselves a new content model called standard header. We'll create it as an element type, and we'll do standard header in there like that. And then we'll do ID, card. Yeah, I think we'll just use this one for now. And then let's just add the content tab. And here we'll just add an image. Choose an image for this header. And then we'll just type in image and we'll choose the image media picker. We don't need to make this mandatory. We could make it mandatory, make our lives easier, but we can also code defensively for it. So enter a title for this header. String, let's have a look for that string. Text string we'll choose for that one. It's using the Umbraco text box data type, so just pick that one. And then we'll do one for subtitle as well. So subtitle, enter a subtitle for this item. Again, we'll choose text string. Submit that. Now that is our standard header component. So in order to use that, we need to go to data types and we need to create a new custom data type using block grid. So we'll go to data types, custom, create a new data type, and then call this. Oh, did I actually save that? Just go back. Yeah, I saved it. Right. So in here, new data type, I'll do block grid, and then I will call it header content. And then a select property editor. So I'm going to choose the block grid, and I'm not going to install the sample configuration. And then I'm just going to choose the components, block grid, content models, standard header. And in this configuration, I'm going to allow it in root and in areas. And for now, that's it, but we will add a custom preview later. So just do submit on that. And then if we go into here, we'll just set it the amount. We'll just say maximum of 1. And that will do. So save that. So now we've got our data type. We can use that where we had the other data types. If we go to content and we go on a page and we see we've got this header content and it doesn't have anything. So if we go back here to compositions And then we've got header properties. We can change this one from being a label. We can click on it and change it to be the grid header content and submit that and save. So now if we go back into the home page, we can see we can add a standard header. So let's add a standard header. Do that. And then the title. This is the title. This is the subtitle. Okay, so we'll create that and save it. So whenever we want to edit it, we can do that. Some things that are cool that I like about the block grid, I'm not sure if I've shown it you yet, but you've got these options here. When you hover, you can edit it, you can copy it, or you can delete it. So the copy is good because what I can do there is I can click copy, and now I can click the paste icon, the clipboard, and then I can paste it in. So I've pasted that directly below. So all the data that was stored on the one above is also in the one below, but remember I put the restriction on to only allow one. So if we save and publish that, then we get to the point where, right, okay, we've saved and published, we've got our content ready. So how do we render that out? So if you remember the convention where we put these files, we put it in the components folder within views, partials, block grid components. So what we need to do now is we need to create one for the header content, or standard header. So I'm just going to copy any of them. So I'm just going to Control V, Control C, and I'm going to rename it to standard header. And I'm going to make sure, oh, no, I don't want to do that. I accidentally deleted the dot. Standard header. So I'm going to make sure in the back office that that's what I called it. So document type, standard header. So it needs to match this here, basically. That's what the file name needs to be. So I'm just going to have to paste that in there, and it does. Right, so with the standard header then, it's going to inherit from Umbraco view page, and then it's going to be a block grid item, and then in that block grid item it's going to have content models and then standard header. Now don't forget, this won't work yet because we haven't built the models. So let's go to settings, models builder, generate models. Now if we do a build, we should see this light up to green. Now it might not light up yet, I'm on the wrong file. If we go to standard header, oh, what have I done? I've edited the wrong file completely. So I'm just going to undo all these changes in here because I didn't want to edit the 3-column file. I'll go into the standard header one and I will just change that to be standard header. I will save it. I'm going to close it as well and then reopen it, and hopefully that will highlight green. Yes, it has. Right, so where do we get the markup from? Well, we go into the header partial that we created earlier, and then we just take that HTML and then we put it into here, standard header, and then we just paste that in. So that's the first stage. So what I want to do is I want to just see what this looks like when it's just rendering out that static HTML. So in order to get it to render that out, we just need to put something in the template that's calling this. So the if we have a look at the home page, so we've got partial async. Now what we want to do is we want to tell it to actually await HTML.get block grid HTML async, and we tell it to use the current model and then we say use header content. So I'll remove the header partial there. I'll tell it to render the header content property and then carry on and render out those others. So let's have a look at what that looks like. So that'll just give it a second, but yeah, what we're expecting to see is that it's using that image. It's got the title, the subtitle. If we reload the page, oh yeah, it won't be using that image with the title and subtitle yet, but we still have a header. So because we've made it render just whatever it used to render before from the partial view, but now within the component view, then we can see that it's working. So I like to do that first just to prove, okay, yeah, it's still rendering the correct thing. And then what we do then is we just go into this and we start working out, right, where do we make things dynamic? So we obviously need to make the image dynamic, and because we didn't make it mandatory, we should make a check to say if the model.content.image is not null, then we'll do the image. Okay, so save that. So now that we're doing that, we want to set the source of this. So instead of it just being that SVG, we'll say at model.content. Insert image. Now we can just do URL, but this might be too big. And then we can also add the alt text. Now I don't think we've done alt text yet, but let's just have a look. Let's just see in our media library. Go to settings, go to media, click on an image. Do we have an alt text property? No, we don't. So let's just get this working first of all, just get it rendering the URL. Just save that. Click on the hot reload button, refresh the page. There we go. It's rendering a different image now. So that's good. But we want to get the alt text working. So one thing I like to do is I like to create a property on the image model so that we can set the alt text on every media item. So if we go into media types and then we go to an image, then we can do add property and we can do alt text. And then we can just say enter the alt description for this image. And we can make this text area. We won't make it mandatory. Even though we probably always want to fill it out, we won't make it mandatory. I'm going to put it on an SVG as well. Enter the alt description for this image. And again, text area. Submit that and save. So now we have that property. Again, we'll probably need to rebuild the models. But also what we want to do is we want to make it so that we have an extension method to get to that property easily from within here. So if we go into a solution, we have a look, have we built any extension methods before? Yes, we have. We've already got a publish content extension method, but we want to do one for media with crops extensions. So if we do right click on extensions, add class, and then we'll call it media with crops extensions.cs. So we'll make this a static class, public static class, meaning that we don't have to create an instance of it as an object. Then we'll be able to create a method on this, public static method again. We don't need an instance of an object, we can just call this method, get alt text, and then we'll say this media with crops because that's the type that the image is. Media item, and then we'll also allow you to string alt text alias equals, and then we'll just default it to alt text because that's the one we used, but perhaps you might want to use this on another project and you could change that. You could pass in whenever you call this to use a different alt text. Anyway, so we'll put in var alt text equals media item dot value converted to a string, and then we'll put in alt text alias. So that is getting the value, and then what we say is if it's null or empty or white space is null or white space, the alt text, then we will just return an empty string. Otherwise, we'll get to this far and then we'll just return alt text. So we'll put a semicolon at the end of that. Now we've got our extension method, rebuild and apply changes. So that's good, and then we can go into our standard header, and then we can just do this here. So we do at model.content.image.getAltText, because that is what it's called, getAltText. And the reason why it knows about that is because in our views, in our view imports, we have freelancer.extensions referenced. So that's how we're able to use that method at that point. So again, hot reload, refresh the page, and we should have an alt text value. And we'll be able to test that out as well. So let's go into here, let's click on this, open it in Media Library, and then let's just put in this is a test. Save and close the media item, close, close, save and publish. Right, let's refresh this and let's see, does it have an alt text? Inspect. This is a test. There we go. So it's got the alt text, so that worked. And you can customize that alt text extension method however you like, but that's how I've done it on mine. So we can go back into the image. Now, let's just have a look at this. So we are rendering out a massive image in a small space. So the small space is only 240 pixels wide. So it's CSS. The CSS is styling it to only ever get 240 pixels wide. So what we can do is we can do, instead of .url, we can do get crop URL. And this will create a URL with query string in it to crop, use the image sharp image cropping functionality to reduce the size of the image. So if we just say get crop URL 240, then the URL that it actually pulls through will be a lot smaller than what it was doing a minute ago. So now the actual width of the actual image is just 240 pixels, whereas if we took this off, it was a full image. And you can test it out as well to do it right down to something a lot smaller. There you go. So that's your query strings there for width and height. So yeah, we're just doing a query string for width on that one. And that's working. So let's move on now and let's get the title to work. So here we've got the hard-coded title. So if we go over and we just replace the hard-coded title with our property at model.content.title, that is now dynamic. And then we've got our divider here, which we can just leave as it is. And then finally, we've got our subtitle. So what we want to do is we want to say, well, if it's got a subtitle, then we'll render it. So above this bit here, we'll say if not string dot is null or white space, model.content.subtitle. Then we will render this in here. Move that inside the brackets, and then we'll just update this bit to be at model.content.subtitle. That's it. So we can just hot reload again, just save it, should do the trick. And now it says this is the title, this is the subtitle. So now we've got our standard header, and that was easy enough. So we just need to move on now. So if we just have a look on the home page if we look on the episode page, let's have a look. So we've got the rich text editor as well. So in my example site, let's just have a look how I've used a rich text editor. So in my about page, I've just got a simple rich text editor here. So we can create one of those. So if I go into the models, and for the rich text one, it's just a very simple model. We go to edit, we go to settings, and we go to components, block grid, content models. Let's create a new element type, and we'll just call this simply rich text. And let's just create this with an icon, and then we'll just put it in a tab called content, and then we'll give it a property called text, and this will just be enter the body text for this rich text element, and then we'll select the editor and we'll just do rich text, and we'll just keep the default one, and it won't be mandatory. We'll just save this. And now let's go down to our custom data types and create a new one, and start it with block grid, and then we can call it main content. And then we'll use the block grid editor type. And on this one, we are just going to add in the rich text for now. So we'll just look for that in here in the components, block grid, content models, rich text. And so the rich text can be added in the root, and it also can be added in areas, because later on we will add it to some other areas. So what we'll do is we'll leave those two on, and then we'll add some resize options. So we want to resize it later to 4, 6, or 12. So when we're using the rich text, we'll probably just have it resized to a 12. When we use that on it in a row on its own on the block grid, but when we use it in like the call to action row, we will have it at these different sizes, 4 and 6. So you'll be able to drag the element to be a bit smaller or wider. And that should be everything for now. We will later create a block preview for it. Just do a save on that. So now we have our data type as well. So like we did with the header properties one, let's do it for the content one. So we'll go up to our content doc type, and we'll change the label of string, and we'll change that to be just type in grid, and now it's block grid main content, and it's not mandatory. So we'll save that. So again, if we go to content now, we've got add rich text. So we can say this is just some rich text to display for demo purposes. Right, so that's our rich text in the content, and then what we'll need to do is we'll need to just, I might just copy some of this lorem ipsum text actually. Save and publish that. So yeah, we'll want to render this out. How do we do that? Well, we go into the code, we have a look at the partial view that we created for the rich text, and this one is super simple. So if we have a look at what is it coming from. So this didn't exist in the templates that we received. It didn't exist. We've got this about one, which has got two rich text items under it. But really, this is a new requirement that I've added. I just want to be able to do rich text on its own. So what we'll do is we will just create it ourselves. So again, I'm just going to copy one, and then I'm going to F12, and I'm going to call it rich text, capital T. And then where it's got the block grid item, I'm going to call this rich text. I'm going to save all. I'm going to go into the back office and generate the models, go into settings, the settings title menu, models builder, generate models, and then we'll just build solution and we'll run it again, just so it knows about everything. And we'll close this file just so that it can recognize, with the syntax highlighting, it recognizes the model. Okay, so what we can do now is we can just put this inside a div with a class, and we'll use the bootstrap classes. So we'll say it's in a container and it's in a margin with top and bottom of 5. And then we will put it inside another div, and this one is col LG8. So when we do the full width one, we want it to just take up 8 columns of the real estate of that screen. And then we also want to do MX Auto, so we want the left and right to be automatically centered, and then we can do at model.content.text. So now we have the rich text available, ready to use. Just give that a hot reload. And then let's just see what page have we added this content in. We've added it on the home page. Now, if you have a look on the home page, you'll see that it's not being rendered, and you wonder why is that? Oh, that's because we didn't actually add it to the template. So if we go to the home page, where we've got the header content, we can just copy that and paste it in and do the same for main content. And if we reload this, what we'll find now is we've got ourselves a nice cheeky little rich text row that works. So we've done our rich text one, and that was pretty simple. We don't currently have any previews or anything like that. Let's just have a quick look at the rich text editor config. So if we go to app settings, and then we'll just go into this, and then we'll just go into Notepad and create that. Now what I do is I put it into Notepad, and then I replace the backslash and quote with just a quote. So now that will treat it as real JSON, and I'll do plugins and JSON, JS tool, JS format. Maybe we could do another one. Pretty print, no, that doesn't work. Try one more. Yeah. Okay, so I use the JSON viewer. But anyway, so that didn't really get us that far into it of what we wanted to actually see. I wonder if we just cut this out, and then we do plugins, JS tool, JS format. There we go. So what you can see in this style formats property, of this rich text editor custom config style formats, we have an array. And in that array, we've got these items. And each item, we've got one for paragraphs. So the title is paragraphs. And then we have an array of items inside that. And the first item has got a title of normal, and it's just using a HTML block of P. Then we've got a title of lead, and it's got a block of P, but with an attribute of a class of lead. And then we go into another one, which is the title of headings, and that's got an array of items as well. And so this one, the title is H1, and the block, HTML block, is H1, and that goes through all the way to 6. And then also I've done it so that I've got the colors from the site. So I've got a text colors one, and primary, secondary, etc. So if we go into the back office, go into the rich text, in theory, I can highlight this text, save and publish, and then it comes out the color of that text because it's been added with the class of that. So that just automatically is working. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, so I just wanted to just show you that with a bit more detail. Another thing I wanted to show you from the previous video is where I got the icons from. So I went on to Font Awesome, Get Started, and I downloaded the web pack. And inside that there is a folder of SVGs, and then you can go into brands, and there is where I got X logo, Facebook logo, and the Twitter logo. So that was how I added those to the media section. So if I close this and go to media, that's where I got these icons from. So I feel like I didn't necessarily show you where to get those from, but yeah, you just go to fontawesome.com and you do a download of the zip file, and then you can get to those SVGs from there. I'm going to call it a day on that one. We're going to do one or two more parts to this episode, but I feel like that's enough for this episode. And I think we'll call it a day with that. If you do like the video, please click on like, subscribe to the channel, and share with others. Please do sign the guest book if you haven't done already. It'd be great to see your messages and hear where you're from and how you're getting on with the series, and maybe ask for help. You can ask for help in the comments of the YouTube video as well, so other people that are watching it or have watched it look at in the comments to see any tips and things like that. All the code will be added at the end of each of the episodes, so you can start from that starting point. And if anybody did want to say thanks by buying me a coffee, you can go to codeshare.co.uk/coffee, but it's never expected. But if anyone does, I do really appreciate. And I will see you on the next part of this episode. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.